Hi, and welcome to part 2 of Gringa Bruja's Introduction to the Tarot. In this section, we're going to talk about some of the common misconceptions about the tarot and the myths, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to use the spreads and do some sample readings as well. So let's move forward with that. I really recommend watching Introduction to the Tarot Part 1 first, because I may be referencing back some of the things that were covered in Part 1. This is called Tarot Misconceptions because we're going to talk about some of the myths that are out there that really are just, I don't see playing out in 35 years of reading. One is that the tarot is an instrument of the devil. I've never seen anything demonic at all about the tarot in the work that I've done with it. It's simply a wise oracle and a psychological tool to help your inner self give a concise message about a particular situation that cuts through the emotional flotsam and jetsam that throws off our own inner wisdom sometimes. And it kind of cuts to the chase and gets that information out there so that you can see an answer kind of coming in the back door without all of the emotional attachment, because the tarot doesn't have the emotional attachment our conscious minds have, and it can kind of clear out some of that muddy water that the emotions can create and that our own will can create. So, I really believe the devil's way too busy in politics to really get involved with a tarot reading. So really kind of get rid of that idea that this is something demonic. It simply is an oracle and a psychological tool. There's a common myth that you should never buy your own deck. Believe me, I've bought literally hundreds of my own decks and never suffered for it. You will not, you can have these thoughts and these ideas, but really you're just cheating yourself, because I'll tell you now, go buy your own deck, find the one you like. If for no other reason, you need to find the deck you are drawn to that calls to you and speaks to you, because there are some really crappy tarot decks out there. There are also some beautiful tarot decks that are gorgeous art, but are not speaking to you intuitively. And you've got to do your research, get on Google Images, and find the tarot deck that really calls to you and that starts to open up the pictures in your head and get the good intuitive thoughts flowing. Some people will say that you've got to keep your cards in a pine box or in a silk cloth or in a crystal box or in a holy bag of holding or whatever. You know, I've kept my cards in the box they come in. I've kept them in little wooden boxes. I've kept them in the crystal boxes. I've kept them wrapped in cloth, kept them in bags, kept them in trunks. You know, your cards will tell you where they want to be. Just honor what the deck tells you. Different decks want to be maintained in different ways, but mostly you have some princess decks out there that really want to be handled with care like a precious orchid, but most tarot card decks are just workhorses. They're really there for you, and they don't require a lot of special handling. But obviously, leading into the next one, no one except you should touch your cards. You don't want to have your cards out to give to the kids to play with when they're eating peanut butter and popsicles. You don't want to have somebody you don't know touching your cards. Your cards are a sacred tool, and so they need to be kept for you. That doesn't mean that, as the next one says, no one except you should touch your cards. That's going to make it hard to do some readings. But you don't want to have just people screwing with them mundanely. Keep them as a sacred tool and use them when the time calls for it. If someone says, hey, can I look at your cards? Don't be afraid to let them look through and look at the artwork on your cards if you're comfortable with that. But if somebody creeps you out, don't hand your cards to them. Never purchase a used deck or read from someone else's deck. Also, just a myth. You know, I've had a bazillion used decks. I prefer to buy a used deck because they're not as slippery. They're already broken in. But you want to clean them out like you do any other magical tool. I'm sorry, my dog's barking. You want to go through one at a time, put them in the moonlight overnight, bury them for a night, do something to discharge the energy that's in there, because again, they're a magical tool. And the next one says you should not read cards for yourself. I rarely read for myself, only because I know I can make those cards say anything I want them to say. I can look at a card reading that tells me exactly what to do, and if it's not what I want it to do, in my head, I'm not going to be unbiased. I'm going to start shifting what it means. And so for a perspective of just having an unbiased reading, somebody else should read for you. But that's not to say it's bad luck to read your own cards, or you're going to have bad karma or problems if you read your own cards. You won't. You can read for yourself. In fact, when you're first starting, you're probably going to be your best client because you're going to read the cards, make a tarot journal of what your different readings are, and check back with those to check the veracity of your readings. This says you should always use a reading cloth. I don't always use a reading cloth, but I want to make absolutely sure I know what's been going on with the surface that I'm going to be reading on. My girlfriend and I, when we were just super tarot newbies, grabbed a flat surface, started doing a reading, and it was a very violent reading. All kinds of swords and cutting and bleeding and what the heck is going on? And we both had husbands in the military at the time, so we got really concerned. Then we looked down and realized that this flat surface we were reading on was her kitchen cutting board. She had a great big cutting board that just pulled out of the cupboard, out of the cabinets, and so we thought, hey, that's nice and smooth. And no, because there's a lot of cutting going on, that came through in the reading. So what the reading cloth is going to do is give you a nice, clean, safe surface to divide between you and the table or whatever. There was one time I was doing a reading for this gal, and it's coming up all this sexual stuff. And I knew her husband was away on maneuvers, and I just sort of looked at her and I was like, Lorraine, is there something you want to tell me? And she said, no. And I said, now, your husband's been gone for a month. And she said, yes. And I said, look, it's just like, look, sex. I'm showing you this. And she told me that when he left, they had actually blessed the table. So if I'd put a reading cloth down for that, I probably wouldn't have gotten quite as sexy of a reading. As it was, in both of those instances, we changed surfaces, put down a reading cloth, and got a perfectly cohesive reading. So you don't always have to use a reading cloth, but just be super mindful about where you're laying your cards down, because the cards are going to pick up the energy of what's around them. Next one, you should always or never charge for a card reading. The idea is in charging for a card reading that you assign a value to what you're doing, and there's a karmic exchange there. And I've got to tell you, once it gets out that you can read cards, you turn into the cousin who can cut hair. Everybody believes you should do it for free, and everybody believes you should do it all the time. And at first, when you're just practicing and getting to know how to do the readings, that's kind of cool, because you get to be, I'm the card reader. I'm so cool. But it gets old after a while. After a while, you don't want to read cards for 15 people every time you go to a party. After a while, you don't want to spend the whole family reunion reading about the aunts and uncles and what all they're doing. So just assign value to what you do. And if you don't want to charge for the reading, don't. But at the same time, tell them, hey, you want a reading? Go to my website and make an appointment. Or don't be afraid to say, I'm not reading today. I'm really kind of low energy and I'm just not feeling it. I just want to relax. Say no, because it will reflect in your reading style if you're doing something you don't want to do. So I would get away from the specifics of always or never charge for a reading. That really doesn't matter. Charge, don't charge. It's completely up to you. There is not an ethic assigned to that. However, don't ever read if you don't want to read. Always make sure you're plugged in, showing up for the reading and in the game, and don't ever do it if you're going to resent it later. Never read for skeptics. In a way, I sign on to this because skeptics are a pain in the ass to read for. And you kind of get this idea going, especially when you're a new reader of, oh yeah, hold my beer, check this out, I'm going to blow you away. And you're just going to do this amazing reading. And you can do that, and sometimes you will get through. But the thing about skeptics is if they sit down and they shuffle the cards, not believing you can do it or not believing in the process, they've got all these walls up. It's going to be hard to get to them. They're not going to be accepting what you're saying. And it just turns into a battle of the wills, and it's not very fun. So on that one, make your own call, but generally I just say, you know what, you're not into this, I'm not going to do it. I don't have time for this. This is a sacred gift, and I don't waste it on people who don't believe in what I can do. Here are some ethics you do want to follow there. However, number one, never predict the tarot or death with the tarot. There are some readings that could come up with different cards together that would say a person's going to have a really difficult time. They're going to experience profound loss. There's going to be a stay in a hospital or something like that. But there are really no card combinations that specifically ever will predict death. They can predict situations that might be death, but that doesn't mean it is death. So don't ever say that somebody's going to die. Even if it looks like somebody's going to die, don't say that they're going to die. It could be something else. It could even be a spiritual death or a death of a relationship. So don't ever tell anybody they're going to die. Next, don't ever do a reading for somebody without their permission. You're snooping. So if somebody comes to you and says something like, I want you to read about my boyfriend and see if he's cheating on me, that is unethical. You're looking into someone's life, someone's personal life without their permission. Now, what you can do is you can go into how this relationship is going to affect this person. You can look for wrongdoing in relationship to the person that you're doing the reading for, but don't specifically read about somebody else without their knowledge, without them being in the room, without them being present. That's just a crappy thing to do. Never do readings for children under 18 without the parents' permission. 2 reasons. One is that they're under 18. They're a minor. You don't need to be looking into their lives without their parents' permission. Number 2, kid readings are crazy boring. They are the most boring readings you will ever do. It's stuff like, I'm going to play with my trucks and all my needs are provided for and I don't have to worry about crap. I mean, it's really a boring reading to do a reading for a kid. You can do them, but make sure you got parent permission and be prepared to be bored. Never treat the tarot as a game. There's a time it was a game. It actually was considered to be a game for many years when it first came about. But now it's a sacred oracle. Now we treat it as a special sacred tool. So always engage the tarot as you would a very respected friend or confidant or high priestess or someone, a mentor, somebody you really respect and want to learn from. Don't treat your tarot cards like a crappy friend. Always observe client confidentiality. There's going to be so much stuff that comes out when you're doing readings for people. And don't be talking about that to your friends, even your best friends. My husband, who I've been married to for 20 years, does not hear what comes up in a tarot reading, even for people he knows. You keep the lid on it and you stay quiet and you do not share somebody's tarot reading with anyone else. It's between you and your client, period, no more. There is absolutely no excuse good enough for breaking client confidentiality. There's just not. You're just a crappy person if you do that. Always treat your client with respect. Even if they're being really crappy to you, you have integrity and treat them with respect. Now, that being the case, you don't ever take mistreatment from somebody. If somebody is just arguing you into the ground about the reading, they're demanding that you read further into this or that, just say, you know what, I'm done. I'm not getting anything. I'm finished. And end the reading. You're perfectly within your bounds to end the reading. That's fine. Do that. But do so, you can do it firmly and still have integrity and still be cool about it. So just say, you know what, I'm not getting anything and I'm going to end this reading now. Thank you very much. You don't have to be abused. You don't have to be ordered around. One of the hardest things you can probably do is to throw a card reading for another reader, because you start getting into your groove and doing your reading. They're like, oh, that's not what that card means. You don't have to do that. What I do is I step back. I look at them like they're stupid. Yeah, I do. And I say, would you like for me to do this reading for you, or would you like to do the reading yourself? And I say it very kindly, but very firmly, to let them know, hey, you engaged me as a reader. If you want me to just throw the cards and walk away, I'll do that too. But I'm the one doing the reading, and I need you to just go with this with me. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have client input. They should be sharing. They should be telling you, yes, this is a situation that's going on. I'm sure this is what this is. I'm having this problem at work. I'm having this problem with my mother-in-law, whatever it might be. Take input from them, but do not let them dominate the reading. It is a shared experience, but you are the reader. So let's look at some of the spreads that we can do. Now, this is probably, hands down, the most common spread ever done, and that's the Celtic cross. It's not a Celtic cross. This isn't sports. It's a Celtic cross. And often what will happen is that these cards will be laid out in a different order. Sometimes they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, just, it doesn't matter. As long as you're consistent. Just be consistent with how you lay the cards out. Some people have asked, do you use a significator, which is a card that you pull to represent the person that you're reading for? You can do that. I don't, because I like to have all my cards working in the deck. I like to have each card available to talk to me without having a stand-in. I can focus on the person in front of me without putting down a significator, so I don't do that. I am a Virgo. I like things in order, so I always put down the cards in the order that I'm going to read them, which means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. First card down is the general atmosphere of the situation. Second card down is what's working with or against that atmosphere, what's shifting it. So this is your changing card or your reinforcing card. Foundation. How did we get to this? What is holding up this situation? Right over here is your card that means what's passing away. What is the exiting influence? What is the incoming influence? And this incoming influence is usually not yet formed. What is the influence that's an outcome? What's going to happen with this if nothing changes? What's coming up? The 7 is about how is this affecting the client? What's going on in regard to their input? What's their input to the situation? How are they influencing the situation, and how is the situation influencing them? Number 8 is about other people in their world, other people in their lives. How do other people affect the situation, and how is the situation affecting other people? Number 9, what are the client's hopes and fears? How are they influencing the situation just by the power of what they're afraid of, or just by the power of what they're hoping for? So this is not defining what is, this is defining an energy that's coming into the situation from the client. And number 10 is your ultimate outcome. Where is all of this heading? So that's your tarot spread for the Celtic Cross. Very popular spread, not one I use. I usually use this one, the diamond. Lay out 9 cards like this, and then I put these ancillary cards over to the side. To me, this down here means what is unexpected. What did you not see coming? Up here is the lesson. What do you need to learn from the situation? Over here is what do you do? What action needs to be taken? And down here is another outcome card. So I read these as this is the head of the reading. It's where everything's coming from, and everything else is flowing down from the head and culminating down here. I read this as the heart of the reading, and that's actually the first card that I read because that gives me the general atmosphere of the reading. The horseshoe is a very versatile spread because what you can do is assign your own category to each one of these cards. So I would decide before I throw the card, this is going to be my main focus. This is about other people and their influence. This is about what I need to know. This is about news that's coming in. This is about health situations. This is the spiritual message I need to receive, and this is my outcome. Just decide what each card is going to be for you. Make your own choices. Stay consistent with it. I would write them down on a paper so you remember what each card is, and throw your horseshoe and do your reading. You can even use more than one card in each one. So do 3 here, 3 here, 3 here, and 3 here, and so on, so that you get a more fleshed out reading. So those are some of my favorite spreads, and the first thing you're going to do when you lay a card reading down is to analyze the reading. So this is a sample reading that I've thrown. This is the diamond without the ancillary cards. So I would look at this reading and think, what do I have going on here? Well, I've got 3 kings. That means a large male influence into the situation. 2 of the kings are looking away from each other, so they either don't know each other or they're in conflict with one another. Down here, we have a card that shows a blindfold, so that tells me they probably don't know each other or don't know the other one exists. We don't have a predominance of any particular number that I'm seeing, but I would look to see if maybe we've got a lot of 2s or a lot of 3s. We've got 2 2s, and that's a good number of 2s. What do we have in terms of colors? Is any color in particular jumping out at me? And it's really not. Major Arcana cards, we have 1, 2. If we have 4, that's a predominance. What about cards that all mean the same? Well, we've got 2 2s here, and they both mean balance. So let's look at the balance. We've got change and we've got restriction. So we'd want to kind of group those together. What do we have for court cards? 1, 2, 3. 3 court cards right there. Do we have any reversals? Now, I don't read reversals. I put all my cards upright because I get full vibrant readings with it upright. And I don't want to wonder about whether or not the client handed me the deck back in the reverse order than what they wanted them. But if a card does come up reversed, I read it that way because I know for a fact that I put them all upright. And if I get them back with reversals, I know that's how the reading was intended to happen. So that is how I would first analyze a reading. I would look at the overall look of the reading. Then I would go to each individual card and give the interpretation of that specific card. Here are some sample readings. So in looking at these, this is the Morgan Greer deck, and this is the Universal Weight deck. Both are favorites of mine. So if I looked at this reading, I would presume that this is a reading for a woman or about a woman, because I've got two queens here, and one of them is the heart of the reading. So probably this is a reading for a woman. We've got, let's see, we've got a lot of wands here. 1, 2, 3 wands, so that means this is a high energy situation. We've got 1, 2, 3 swords. That means that we've got some obstacles we're going to have to look at. So what I would say for this reading is I would start with the Queen of Wands, or the Queen of Cups, and say this is something that needs to be approached intuitively. And we also have 3 queens here, so there's a high female energy to this particular situation. This could be 3 aspects of the same person, or it can be 3 different women who are involved with the situation. We've got a king up here as well, so that's a total of 4 primary court cards, plus down here we've got 2 pages. Lots of people involved in this situation. And I would go through each of the cards and give my interpretation. The Ace of Swords, the ability to cut through, but I would also tie it into the fact that there's a woman right here holding a sword. So a woman has the power in this situation. We've got conflict up here, but at the end we have partnership and reconciliation. We've got arrest up here in the position of what is the lesson that needs to be learned? The lesson is, don't influence things all the time. Take a break. Take a rest. What action do you need to take? Get a new beginning. Start over again. What's your outcome? The card of the student. Learn a lesson and move forward. Down here, look at this. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 major arcana cards. Lots of high energy stuff going on there. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 cups. That's a lot of cups, so there's a lot of emotion involved in this. I would look at the fact that we've got 1, 2, 3 court cards. So yeah, there's some people involved in this as well. But look at the heart of the reading. The heart of the reading is the Death card. Complete and total change coming. And the Tower is in play at the head. So this person who I threw this reading for is going through dramatic change, and they're probably feeling very antsy and uncomfortable right now. But I would then work them through the reading and direct them to this down here. The 9 of Cups, one of the happiest cards in the deck. The Sun card, again, happy card, and the Ace of Cups, emotional fulfillment. So all of this destruction that's going on right here is leading to a wonderful outcome that they're really going to appreciate and enjoy. This area over here would tell me they're feeling very paranoid, very defensive, but a lot of that is it's demons they've created on their own. It's demons they're cooking up in their own head. And they need to look to the joy of the future, or they're going to miss it if they get too wrapped up in their obsessions and their fears. So that's a little bit of how to do it. I hope this was helpful to you. Again, we would have to go through so many hours of instruction to get a full and comprehensive view of how to read the tarot. But this is just some ideas, just some little hints that have helped me along the way. For a full explanation of how to engage your tarot deck, plus all of my interpretations and a little bit more in terms of hints and ideas for how to read, be sure and pick up Tarot for Real People from Amazon.com, and there will be a link in the comment section. Thanks so much for being here.